As spring comes to New Zealand, we put away our snowboard boots and dust off our hiking shoes. In this episode, we head into the Pisa Conservation area, less than an hour from Queenstown. Starting in the Cardrona Valley, we hike out to the historic Meg Hut for an overnight stay, before tackling through backcountry terrain historically used by the Māori, gold miners and sheep herders. We learn the histories of these peoples and the hardships they endured as we retrace their steps in a place that remains barely unchanged throughout time. Join us as we hike the Meg Hut and Roaring Meg pack track on Global Travel Stories. So I'm out here in the Pisa Conservation area with Vitus and Agne.
Hello.
Met these two guys about, just over 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
We were hiking in the Tongariro circuit and these guys were doing the crossing. They're now living in Queenstown, so we're doing some outdoor activities together. Yeah. We're here in the Cardrona Valley, and the Cardrona Valley is actually a historical area for the gold mining. Going back to 1862, basically we had gold miners throughout this area here in central Otago, following the river systems looking for alluvial gold. So we're going to go up through these mountains, see some historical huts, learn a little bit more about the history, and get some awesome views. Heading up to a place called the Meg Hut. We'll be staying there overnight. It's already, what time did we say it was? 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. So sun sets in about an hour and 40 minutes, and it's about a 2-hour hike. So we're going to be nice and quick. Hear some squeaking in the background, and we came across this guy over here, which is actually a California pigeon. Definitely not native to New Zealand, as the name suggests. They do come from California. They're a North American species. A little bit of a pest here, to be honest. This time of the year, you'll usually see them with the little chicks that are adorable. Listen to the sound of it already. But definitely not supposed to be here in New Zealand. So one thing you'll see a lot of in this part of New Zealand in the springtime, little baby lambs. And one great thing about New Zealand is that New Zealand was the first country to give animals sentient rights. So that means that animals are actually acknowledged as emotive creatures that have their own needs. Look at these guys. So we're not too far from the saddle now, almost at the top there, and then we'll descend down to the Meg Hut. Actually, it was a really, really warm day today, so about 25 degrees Celsius in Queenstown, which is really, really hot for the springtime. What do you guys think of that sunset? Beauty. It's magic. Look at that. So we are up at Tui Saddle, and we're about to make our way over this part right up here, and beyond there is the Meg Hut. So hopefully, next half an hour, that's what we're hoping. So we're about to leave the Meg Hut, and before we do, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the history of this historic hut. The hut here itself was built back in the 1860s during the gold rush, and it was actually a sheep mustering station, part of the Mount Pisa station at the time. They had roughly between 60,000 and 80,000 head of sheep here in this region, which was absolutely insane, huge. The original hut itself that was built in the 1860s, all you can see of the remains of it is part of the chimney. The hut that we have here was purchased in the 1920s, or at least the land was purchased and the hut was built in the 1920s when they subdivided the Pisa station up into smaller blocks, so 6,700 hectares. Now the head chef here, his name was Jack Skur. He's quite a reputation as a bit of a character. Basically, when the cooks here on the station used to get into fights, he would hang up some boxing gloves on the hut itself, so whenever they had to deal with any of their issues, they would take it out with the boxing gloves. So we're about to head down into the valley now, and we are heading down towards a place known as the Roaring Meg. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Roaring Meg when we get there. Alrighty, that's our first river crossing. What do you guys think? Refreshing. Well, we've got at least one more, potentially more than one more, so we'll see. Every time I say we're only going to do a couple of river crossings, it ends up being like 20, so I'm keeping my shoes on and slodging through the wet. Are you guys going to hike without shoes on?
It's okay.
You got hobbit feet. This is the ultimate challenge here. Agnan is trying to get across this Spaniard grass right here, which is really, really spiky. I'm sure I'm drawing blood from my thigh right now. So Vitus is going to take the rock climbing route, and I'm going to get my feet wet again. Second river crossing. Woo! Oh, this is faster than last time, that's for sure. So this is pretty epic. We didn't quite know what to expect coming through here. We'd heard that there was a bit of a gorge, but this is actually worth the track out. It's actually quite a dodgy track. You can see what we're going through, but just the views here alone are totally worth it. It's amazing. Okay, so we made it back to the trail. What do you guys think? Pretty tough going?
It was fun.
Just some advice if anyone's planning to do the little shortcut, inverted commas there, from the Meg Hut to the Miners' Hut. Basically that 1.5 kilometers or whatever it is probably going to take up half of your day. So it did basically take longer than it would have if we had taken the longer way around, which was to go up over the saddle. But we're back onto solid ground now, back onto a proper trail, just past the Miners' Hut. And we also passed along the way a lot of these little huts made of schist, which is the type of sedimentary rock that we have around here. Probably used by sheep herders or miners at the time, so gold miners came right through this area, scouring these river systems here. I will say though that they must have lived a very, very hard life considering the type of terrain that we've gone through today. So we'll continue back down on the official trail now. Direct path, and it looks as though we have to cross to the other side of the river, so this will be river crossing number 3. This time of the year the water levels are quite deep. This is late spring, so you get a lot of snow melt, which means it's also really, really cold too. So let's check this out. It looks like someone's actually stood down here. How deep are we? Oh, that's not too bad. Oh, straight in. Woo! It's actually fast flowing, this one too. Woo. See, this is a real adventure. There we go. There we go. And look, there's a sign. So in the distance there you can see part of the Cardrona River. Just beneath us is some aqueducts that lead down to the Roaring Meg hydroelectric plant. So that leads down onto the Cardrona River itself, which is basically where we're going. So we're going to be following the line of the aqueducts now and making our way down there in the distance. So you can see the dam down here is where they're actually getting the water from the Kirtle Burn down for the Roaring Meg, which is the power station that we're going to go down very shortly. And New Zealand's energy, 57% of our energy comes from hydroelectricity. So all of these sort of burns and creeks, burn is actually a Scottish word for a creek, they're channeled to create energy, free renewable energy, in which we have about 84% renewable energy here in New Zealand, which is pretty cool. This is an interesting river crossing right here. See if I survive. If not, at least I'll film it. Okay, cool. So we are about to make our way down onto the actual farm road here. We are on private land. This is all still part of the Roaring Meg pack track. So this was the trail used back in the days of the gold miners to get from Cardrona up there down to Cromwell, which is pretty close to where we're heading up right now. So yeah, we're pretty much on the last leg of the journey. So we're almost down at the Roaring Meg now, and we're walking through this pine forest. In a lot of our pine forests here in New Zealand, you'll see a lot of dead pine trees, and that's because they've been intentionally poisoned. Now that's not because we're declaring war against nature here, that's simply because pine trees are not a part of this ecosystem. And they were originally brought over here in the 1800s for timber. So all these fresh saplings, these young ones here, are actually potentially a problem in the future if they're not dealt with. Basically, pine trees will drop pine needles into the soil, and they'll acidify the soil with the resin from the pine needles, and they'll stop other native plants from growing up in these areas where they're supposed to be native plants, not pine trees. So yeah, alrighty guys, we made it. Woo. It was actually a pretty long day, longer than we thought. How many hours were we out?
In total, 8 hours and 30 minutes in total.
6 hours.
6 hours today, yeah. So we're actually down here at the site of the old Kirtle Burn Hotel, which was built during the gold rush of the 1860s. It was the perfect crossroads between Cardrona, where we just came from, and Cromwell, and also from Queenstown to Cromwell as well. So miners could stop here along the way during the 1860s gold rush. Unfortunately, it burnt down in the 1880s, and all that's left now are these giant poplar trees that were originally built here when planted here, I should say, when the building was built. We're gonna cross the road now and go check out the Roaring Meg. Let's do it. So we've finally reached the end of our journey down here on the Cardrona River at the Roaring Meg. The Roaring Meg itself is where the name comes from for the Meg Hut up there where we stayed last night. And Meg herself was actually a saloon girl at the Kirtle Burn Hotel that we just passed a moment ago. And it was basically the hotel for all the gold miners coming. One of the stories in the area where the name possibly came from was the fact that they were carrying the two saloon girls across parts of the river here. And one of them was roaring and screaming, and that was Meg herself, which was a hot-headed Irish waitress in the actual hotel. And they named another section of the river a little bit further down the Gentle Annie, after another waitress who was apparently very silent when crossing the river. We're actually heading down to a spot right now where it was said that the Māori used to cross from one side of the Kawerau Gorge to the other. And you can read about the exploits of Nathaniel Chalmers, an early English explorer through the area, who was guided by a Māori chief, a rangatira, who actually took him through the region here and showed him where they were able to jump. Apparently these days though, the actual reach across the gorge is not quite the same as what it used to be. Parts of the gorge have collapsed, making that gap much further than it used to be. Still, you can actually see where it once was. So you can see right behind me here, this is where the two rocks were located that the Māori were able to jump from one side to the next. Pretty terrifying if you look at the speed and ferocity of that water. We're gonna head up over New Zealand's highest sealed pass right now, up in the Crown Range, which stretches over 1,000 meters, and then we're gonna go up to New Zealand's oldest hotel, the Cardrona Hotel, for dinner, which is our lunch/dinner, and definitely have a beer up there. Apparently it's haunted. Alrighty, so we are just about to go over the Crown Pass, which is the highest sealed pass in New Zealand. So just over 1,000 meters. Here we are, Crown Pass. There you go. Now we'll descend down into the gold mining town of Cardrona. Alright, so we're about to head over into the Cardrona Hotel, which is actually the oldest hotel here in New Zealand. So it was built in 1863. Rumour has it that the previous owner of the hotel itself still haunts the premises. Alrighty guys, here we go, I've made it, cheers! Cheers! It'll all just fill out. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed our content, please like and subscribe.
And we'd love if you could leave us a comment letting us know what you've enjoyed or what you'd like to see more of.
And help us grow our channel. Become part of the Global Travel Stories family by sharing with friends, family, or anyone you think would enjoy our content. Thanks, guys.